All right, here we have what's called the equilateral triangle theorem. Um, and it's a corollary, excuse me. It says if a triangle is equilateral, then it's automatically equiangular. Remember, equilateral means having all sides equal. Equiangular means having all angles equal. So here's the hypothesis. When you have all of these sides equal, then all of your angles end up being equal also. And it's a corollary of the isosceles triangle theorem that said when you have two congruent angles, then the sides opposite those, or excuse me, two congruent sides, the angles opposite those angles are also congruent. Okay? When we have congruent sides, that means the angles opposite those sides are congruent. And so when you have three congruent sides, that makes all three angles congruent. So anytime it's an equilateral triangle, it's also equiangular. And one helpful fact to know is that when you have an equilateral triangle, if all of the angles are equal, what does that make your angle measure for each angle? Well, remember the angles in a triangle have to add to be 180. So we're looking for a number that 3 times the number is 180. And that gives us 60 degrees. So every single time, without fail, when you have an equilateral triangle, all of the angles in that triangle are equal to 60. Always. The sides will vary. They will all be the same length, but they won't always be from triangle to triangle the same size. You can have big equilateral triangles and small. But as that happens, the angles will always be 60 degrees. Given an equilateral triangle that has sides 3t plus 2 and 6t minus 7, what is the length of each side? Well, what does it mean to have an equilateral triangle? It means that all of your sides are congruent. Specifically, they tell us we could label two of those sides as, 3t plus 2 and 6t minus 7. Well, we need to find the length of a side. We don't want a t in it, so we need to set up an equation to solve for t. We know those sides are congruent, so the equation we would use is that those two sides are equal. So 3t minus 2 should equal 6t minus 7. I would want to solve that for t. So I'm going to move the 3t to the other side so that t's are on the same side. So I would subtract 3t. Leaves me with just a 2 over here. 6 minus 3 is just 3t minus 7. We're to add 7 to both sides, which gives me 3t equals 9. And finally, divide both sides by 3. And when I do, I get that t is equal to 3. Now, double check, what did they want? They wanted to know what is the length of each side. They didn't want to know t. We had to find it to answer the question, so we didn't waste our time. But now we need to do one more step with it. We need to take the fact that t is 3 and substitute it back into either of these two sides would work since they're supposed to be the same length anyways. So one of the sides was 6t minus 7. If t is 3, that means the length of the side is 6 times 3 minus 7. 6 times 3 is 18, and 18 minus 7 gives us 11 is the length of each side. You can try it in the other one just to double check and make sure you did get the same measure. That would be 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2, once again, is 11. Okay, so the length of each side would be 11.